In this lecture, we are going to discuss on theory of hydrodynamic boundary layer or the velocity boundary layer. Fluid flow analysis is very important in the convection heat transfer study, because in convection you know that heat transfer phenomena takes place because of the fluid flow. So in this particular lecture, we'll see the hydrodynamic boundary layer, and first we'll see what is hydrodynamic boundary layer, then we'll see that why boundary layer forms, and then we'll see the objective of the study of the boundary layer, dimensional analysis approach, and the scaling analysis or order of magnitude analysis. Maybe in the next lecture we will cover the other topics. So let us first understand what is velocity boundary layer or hydrodynamic boundary layer. See, let us take a very classical example. As you can see that there is a flat plate. Let us consider this is a flat plate and some fluid is flowing over the plate with uniform velocity, say u infinity. This is what is called the free stream velocity. This is called free stream velocity. Okay. Now what we are going to observe here is that there is a region very close to this solid surface, that means this flat plate. The viscous effect is significant, or in other words you can also say very close to the solid surface there is a region where a velocity gradient is significant. Velocity gradient significant means you will observe if you go perpendicular to the direction of the solid surface, you will find that the velocity is continuously varying as you are moving in the upward direction or in the y direction. So that means a velocity variation is there in the y direction. So but after that, as you cross this particular region, the boundary region, you will find that this velocity is almost uniform after that. That means there is no velocity variation in the white region. Only the variation of velocity is significant within this shaded region. So this shaded region very close to the solid surface where the velocity variation occurs perpendicular to the solid surface into the fluid, this region is called the boundary layer. Okay, and specifically this is called the velocity boundary layer. Now this velocity boundary layer is very important. The reason is that suppose you want to find out what is the drag force that will act on this plate, and definitely to find out the drag force, it is the velocity gradient close to the surface which is important. So definitely outside this layer, that means this white region, the velocity gradient is not there. That is why the viscous effect is not felt. So if viscous effect is not felt, then you can do the inviscid flow analysis. But within the boundary layer, since the velocity variation is significant, then you have to consider the viscous effect. That means you have to solve the Navier-Stokes equation to find out the velocity field, and that is very important to find out the drag also. So to solve problems such as, let us consider there is a train that is moving with some very high velocity, then in that case the fluid is going to flow over this train, and that particular situation you can model by this kind of a flow over a flat plate. So this is for practical example to find out the drag acting on a train is similar to this kind of a simple situation. So now let us see some of the key parameters associated with this velocity boundary layer. If you observe at any location x, let us consider at any location x is basically the distance from the leading edge of the flat. This is what is the leading edge of this flat plate. So x is this direction positive. Let us consider at a distance x, this is what is the velocity field, how the velocity is changing in the y direction. You can see that at the bottom here the velocity is 0, and gradually as you move in the y direction, you see that the velocity is gradually increasing, and after reaching a particular distance from the solid surface, let us consider this distance is delta, you will find that the velocity that it will achieve is almost same as the free stream velocity. See, this is almost at the free stream velocity. So generally it is taken as the 99% of the free stream velocity. The point where it will reach is basically the edge of the boundary layer at that particular position. Okay, and this particular thickness is called the boundary layer thickness. It is symbolized as delta. Okay, so in this way all these points you can see, and these are basically the thickness of the boundary layer at different locations. And if you join these points, what the line that you will get is called the edge of the boundary layer. So anything above the edge of the boundary layer, it is the velocity gradient is actually not there as such. So inviscid flow analysis can be done. Inviscid flow analysis can be done means you can apply the Euler's equation to find out the velocity field. But within the boundary layer, definitely you have to use the Navier-Stokes to find out the velocity field. So now let us try to understand that why the boundary layer actually forms. That means why the velocity variation takes place within this small region. If there was no viscosity, nothing was there, then what you will find, if there is a flat plate and some fluid is flowing at velocity u infinity, so you will find everywhere the velocity is same and no velocity variation will be observed. But if we see that the real fluids where the viscous effects is present, you will find that close to the wall, that means the fluid particles which are in contact with the wall, they will have the same velocity as that of the wall. That means if wall is fixed, then these fluid particles which are in contact with the wall will also be fixed. So suddenly what happens, initially the fluid suppose is moving with some velocity u infinity, and when the layer in contact will come in contact with the solid surface, they will suddenly experience a momentum disturbance. That means initially some momentum was there which is u infinity, and when they will come in contact with the solid surface, the velocity will become 0. So momentum will become 0 to that layer. So definitely this layer will be at the same velocity as the wall. Now this effect of momentum disturbance will now propagate to the next layer just above it. It will now propagate to the next layer of fluids, and if this is the second layer, then definitely this will try to drag this layer of fluids. It will try to drag this layer of fluids. Okay, and this information is passed on to the next layer, and this is done because of the property viscosity. So viscosity is the property of the fluid because of which the momentum disturbance of one layer is that information is propagated to the other layers. Okay, and on the other hand, the fluids which are above it, definitely they will try to sustain its momentum because of its inertia. Okay, and inertia, as you know, mass into acceleration quantity, so it is directly related to the density and u infinity. So if density is high, inertia will be high. If u infinity is high, so inertia will be high. So in terms of property, if you look, it is the density which is responsible property for the inertia, and viscosity is the responsible property for the momentum disturbance propagation or the diffusion of the momentum disturbance from one layer to another layer. So what will happen, that intermediate layer will take some intermediate velocity. Similarly, that information will again pass on to the next layer. In this way, gradually the velocity will increase, as you can see, and after reaching a particular distance, you will find that almost 99% of the free stream velocity will be achieved, and after that almost there will be no change of the velocity. Okay, so this thickness of the boundary layer then depends on which factors. It is clear that it depends on the relative value of the viscosity with respect to rho. That means relative value of this diffusion with respect to its inertia, kind of a thing. Okay, and definitely it also depends on what is the inertia, that is, it also depends on the u infinity, and this will also depends on what, that if you consider the length from the leading edge, let us consider this x. So definitely if you consider, as you can see, as you are moving away and away from this leading edge, you see that the thickness of the boundary layer is gradually increasing. And the reason is very simple, that why it is increasing, because more and more fluid particles are now in contact with the solid plate. Okay, so that is why they are producing more and more dragging effect, because those particles will experience the no slip boundary condition, and that is why they will create more and more dragging effect. That is why the diffusion length actually increases. So delta depends on the distance from the leading edge where you want to know the thickness of the boundary layer. So you have understood that what is velocity boundary layer, you have understood that why velocity boundary layer forms, and also you have understood by the time that these quantities, thickness of the boundary layer thickness depends on certain factors, like if we consider a function, it will function of what, it will function of the properties like viscosity density, it is function of velocity, it is function of the distance from the leading edge, that you have understood. So maybe the objective of the velocity boundary layer might be to find out what is the value of the thickness of the boundary layer. Maybe from the physics point of view it's okay, that might be the objective, but truly speaking, from the engineering perspective, the objective is to find out what is the drag that is acting, right? So the shear stress, we may be interested to know what is the wall shear stress that is acting on the plate at a particular location. So this wall shear stress is not constant along the or at all the points. At different x, this wall shear stress is continuously changing. So we may be interested to know this wall shear stress value, and that will again also depends on these quantities, because you know that what is the expression of wall shear stress in simplest way, you know, it is mu into del u del y, right, at y is equal to 0. This is what is the wall shear stress. Now it depends on mu, it is clear, it depends on velocity, it is clear. Okay, and definitely this y direction in the order of magnitude of this quantity is delta. So it depends on these quantities, right? Order of magnitude means the maximum value of u. Okay, maximum value of u along the y direction, it will vary. So maximum value of u is u infinity. So the order of magnitude of u is u infinity. What is the maximum value of y within the boundary layer? So maximum value of y within the boundary layer is delta, that is the boundary layer thickness. So wall shear stress will depends on these quantities only. That means mu and delta already we have seen depends on these quantities. So mu, rho, u infinity and x, these are the quantities on which the wall shear stress will depend. Okay, but ultimately what we want to find out is definitely is the drag force. We are actually interested to find out what is the drag force acting on this plate, right? So if how can we find out the drag force? If you consider this is the plate, and let us consider that width of the plate is say b, and from the leading edge let us consider at a distance x, and if we consider a very small area of thickness dx, then definitely the fd quantity is nothing but integration of wall shear stress at a distance x, that is tau wall into b dx. Okay, so assume that within that small region this tau wall is same, and that if you integrate over the whole length x, that means from 0 to L, if L is the total length of the plate, that will give you what is the drag force. So it is very important to know that this tau wall as a function of x. So if you know that, then you can easily do this integration. So objective is basically to finding out the wall shear stress as a function of these quantities. Now objective is clear. Now let us try to find out the different ways how can we find out these objective variables. So first what we are going to do, let us see through the dimensional analysis approach. What we know for the dimensional analysis is that if you write that tau wall is some function of x rho mu into mu and u infinity. These are the quantities on which tau wall is depend, that we have identified. So now you can do the Buckingham pi theorem to find out the dimensionless groups. So this is what is our objective variable. So how many 1 2 3 4 5, there are total 5 different variables are there, and out of them how many are how many fundamental dimensions are present, m, l and t. So 3 fundamental dimensions are there. So what is the number of dimensionless groups can be formed? That is 2. Okay, so 2 pi terms can be formed, and these 2 dimensionless groups, one of them will contain tau wall and another one will be combination of they. So let us if we do these calculations, I know you know how to find out these dimensionless groups of the pi terms. If you do, you will find that one of the non-dimensional group will be tau wall by rho u infinity square, and another dimensionless group will be rho u infinity by into x by mu. Okay, and this quantity tau wall by half rho u infinity square. So what you can do is that you can add 1/2 here, because half is a constant, so that you can definitely write no change of dimension will occur, and this particular quantity is called skin friction coefficient and symbolized as CFX, which is called, so this is local skin friction coefficient. Okay, so this quantity is called skin friction coefficient. So skin friction coefficient is a dimensionless expression of the shear stress, and that is function of this dimensionless group, and this is a very popular dimensionless group which is called the Reynolds number, but this is a local Reynolds number. So where x is the characteristic length. So what is the characteristic length of this system? In a flat plate, the characteristic length is basically the distance from the leading edge. Okay, so Reynolds number is not constant. Basically from point to point the Reynolds number is changing, because it is defined with respect to the characteristic length which is taken as the distance from the leading edge. So the local Reynolds number, it is the x, where x is the distance from the leading edge. Okay, so this is what we actually have to do now. To find out this exact function, what we can do, we can do the experiment in the laboratory setup. We can change the values of the properties, or we can change the velocity, we can change the geometry. That means that at different locations you can find you can measure physically the stresses, and if you plot those, from that you can get some idea about their relationship. So this is the experimental approach, and by which you can, without solving any equations or anything, you can get an idea about the relationship. Now let us see that the theoretical approach, what we can do. So for that we'll do the scaling analysis. Now scaling analysis or the order of magnitude analysis are the same, and those are the main objective of doing this analysis is that you can get the boundary layer equations, and you can also predict the functional form of the boundary layer thickness and the skin friction coefficient, even without actually solving the equations. Only analyzing their scale and order of magnitude of the different term of the Navier-Stokes equation and the continuity equation, and from that it is possible to predict the functional relationship, kind of functional relationship of boundary layer thickness and the skin friction coefficient. So these are the objectives that we'll see how can we do that. So we'll first take up this particular topic, what are the boundary layer assumptions and what is boundary layer equations. And this was first proposed by Prandtl. This was first proposed by the scientist Prandtl, and it is around 1900. At that time it was very difficult to solve the Navier-Stokes equation because the numerical techniques were not so developed at that time. Even analytically, still today that Navier-Stokes equation is not possible to solve, but definitely with the numerical analysis it is not a very difficult task nowadays to get the solution. Now that is why it was very important to solve this Navier-Stokes equation, because viscous effect is considered in the Navier-Stokes equation, but mathematically it was very challenging to solve the equation. Okay, so that is why certain scaling analysis has been done, and certain terms actually dropped from the actual equation, and finally the form of the equation that we get is what is called the boundary layer equation. So the first is the assumptions that are called the boundary layer assumptions, and the boundary layer assumptions are, first one is there will be no separation of flow. No separation of flow. That means if you consider there is a curved surface, a solid body, and some fluid is flowing over it, and it is clear that from this point the fluid is going to separate. So this portion, it is the flow is separated, so in this portion you the boundary layer equations or the solution of the boundary layer equations will not be applicable. Okay, definitely in case of a flat plate there is no scope of flow separation. Now the second assumption is the delta by L, that means the thickness of the boundary layer, if you compare with respect to the actual length of the system, that is much less than 1. This is what is the boundary layer assumption. Okay, so under these two assumptions we can derive the boundary layer equations. So first let us see what was our continuity equation. Continuity equation. So continuity equation was del u del x plus del v del y is equal to 0. We are considering 2D incompressible situation as we have already derived it. Now if you do the scaling analysis of this, so what is the order of magnitude of the first term? So the order of magnitude of this first term is u infinity, and what is the maximum value of x? The maximum value of x in case of a flow over a flat plate, it is definitely it's the length of the plate, total length of the plate, so u infinity divided by L. That is what is the order of magnitude of the first term. What is the order of magnitude of the second term? V is the y component of velocity. Maximum value we do not know, let us consider that is v infinity at the edge of the boundary layer, and this y the maximum value is a delta. So this is what is the order of magnitude of this quantity, and definitely the order of magnitude of this quantity must be equal to the order of magnitude of this quantity, otherwise these two terms cannot cancel and produce 0. So they must have the similar order of magnitude. Okay, we are not bothering about their sign or multiplication by something 1, 2, 3 or division by something. Those are not going to change its order of magnitude. Okay, so they will have the similar order of magnitude. So v infinity by delta is equal to u infinity by L. That means the order of magnitude, it is not equal actually, it is the similar order of magnitude. So this is the symbol used to represent the order of magnitude. Okay, so the order of magnitude of this, so order of magnitude of v infinity is delta by L into u infinity. Okay, so this is what we can conclude from the continuity equation. Now if we consider the y momentum equation, if we consider now the y momentum equation first, and then we'll consider the x momentum equation. So y momentum equation, that means the Navier-Stokes y component, we are already we have derived, is that it is del rho del t, sorry, it is del u del t, sorry, it is del v del t, because we are writing the y momentum. So del v del t plus u del del x plus v del del y, and it was multiplied by rho, so rho we can take on the other side, so it is the y momentum equation. So 1 by rho into, with a negative sign, del p del y plus it is mu into del 2 del x2 plus del 2 del y2. Okay, it is v, and there was body force term, which is that divided by rho. Actually we are dividing all the terms by rho, so it is gy, we have divided by rho, so rho gy by rho gy by rho. Okay, now we are assuming further that the flow is steady. This is one more extra assumption than the assumptions that we have already taken for this writing this equation. So we are considering it is steady and gravity is negligible. Okay, so we are considering that g is negligible. So if we consider these two, g is negligible means with respect to the pressure and the inertia, if you compare, this gravity effect is negligible. Okay, this is what is the meaning. It is not that exactly g is 0. What we mean that with respect to the other term, basically the effect of the body force can be neglected. This is what is the meaning. Okay, so if we, so better you write in that way only, that gravity is negligible within boundary layer. Okay, so if you do that, then definitely if it is steady, then that term will be 0 for the steady flow, and this term will be 0 because because of the second assumption, that is negligible gravity. Okay, and what else? We can see these two terms, if we just compare these two terms here, this term and this term. So one term is del 2 del x2, another term contains del 2 del y2. Okay, now already in the boundary layer assumptions we have seen this del 2 del x2 is kind of what, order of magnitude wise, this quantity is something divided by L square, and del 2 del y2 is something divided by delta square. Okay, so definitely this delta square is much less than L square, so definitely this quantity is much greater than this quantity. Okay, so if something is multiplied, like V is multiplied, then definitely this quantity is much greater with respect to this. So always remember this quantity is much greater than this. That means this term can be neglected with respect to the other term. Okay, so the first term can be neglected with respect to this term, because this term is very large within boundary layer because of the boundary layer assumptions. Okay, so remember the boundary layer assumption is an assumption based on which we are deriving something, but it does not mean that boundary layer will be such that always this delta by L will be much less than 1. That means it may be possible that delta will be in the order of L, or it may be possible that delta even is greater than L. That is also possible. So all three possibilities are there actually, but what we are deriving here is this situation where delta is much less than L, that situation. Okay, if the actual situation is like this, okay, if the Reynolds number is very small, say in the order of 0.1 or 1. So in that case you may find these kind of situations. Okay, but we are considering the situations with higher Reynolds number, and in that case, in most of the cases, we are going to get this kind of a situation where delta is much less than L. And the solution that we are going to get here are for these situations only. So that means the boundary layer solutions that we will get at the end is valid only for this situation which practically satisfies this condition, this boundary layer assumption, that you have to remember. Okay, so that part we have understood. This term is negligible, and here what are the different term is basically, this term is what? This term is basically the inertia term, okay, because this is the mass into acceleration term, and this term is what? This is the pressure gradient term, and this term is what? The viscous term. This is what is the viscous term. Now these three kinds of forces are there in the equation. Now if we compare their relative strength, let us consider we want to check what is the order of magnitude of the inertia term. So order of magnitude of the inertia term, if you want to check this inertia term, its order of magnitude will be the order of magnitude of this term. So what is the order of magnitude of this term? The order of magnitude of u is u infinity. Order of magnitude of u is u infinity. Order of magnitude of v is say v infinity, and order of magnitude of x is L. Now already the v infinity we know is what? V infinity is, we know its order of magnitude is delta by L u infinity, right? So if you just write this u infinity into delta by L into u infinity, so this quantity is coming something like delta by L into u infinity square. Okay, and sorry, here one L is there, so one more L will be there. So finally it is coming delta into u infinity square divided by L square. So this is what is the order of magnitude of the inertia term. If you consider this quantity, that will also give you the same thing. You see v infinity square by delta. So inertia term for the second part, you see it is v infinity square by delta means what? It is basically delta by L into u infinity, which is basically the v infinity, this divided by delta. And if you see, if you simplify, you will get the same result, that is delta u infinity square by L square. Okay, that means these two terms having the similar order of magnitude, and if you add them up it will be twice of that. And I have already told you, if you multiplied order of magnitude by 2, that is not going to increase its order of magnitude. Okay, so order of magnitude of the inertia term, the whole inertia term, is basically this one. Okay, so we have seen what is the order of magnitude of the inertia term. Now let us see what is the order of magnitude of the pressure gradient term. Now order of magnitude of the pressure gradient term, the order of magnitude of the pressure gradient term, if you want to write 1 by rho del P del Y. So what is that? 1 by rho del P del Y. You know that this P, the maximum value of P, if you consider this is a flat plate and fluid is flowing, so pressure, the maximum value of pressure is say P infinity, which is acting at the edge. Okay, the P infinity, the free stream pressure, and that P infinity is you can write with the velocity the relationship, because outside the boundary layer this region is inviscid, so you can apply the Bernoulli's equation, P infinity by half rho u infinity square, that is equal to constant. Okay, that means basically P infinity and half rho u infinity square, they are of the similar order of magnitude, that is why they are added and they are there in the equation. So P infinity and half rho u infinity square of the similar order of magnitude. So P infinity's order of magnitude is basically rho u infinity square. You need not to consider this half. Okay, that is not going to change the order of magnitude. So order of magnitude of this term is 1 by rho into rho u infinity square, that divided by order of magnitude of y, which is delta. So order of magnitude of the pressure gradient term is coming as u infinity square divided by delta. Okay, and what is the order of magnitude of the viscous term? Now order of magnitude of the viscous term, if you see the what was the term, that is mu by rho into del 2 v del y2. Okay, so that is mu by rho, which is basically kinematic viscosity. Kinematic viscosity is defined as mu by rho. So that into del 2v del y2. Okay, so this is what is the viscous term. So what is the order of magnitude of this term? The order of magnitude of this term is nu into v infinity divided by order of magnitude of y is delta, so delta square. Now v infinity already we know what? We know from the continuity equation that v infinity is of the order of magnitude of delta by L into u infinity. So nu into delta by L into u infinity divided by delta square. So if you simplify, it is coming nu into u infinity divided by L into delta. So that is what is the order of magnitude of the viscous term. So we have got the order of magnitude of three different kinds of force term present in the y momentum equation. Now if you just compare one particular term with respect to other term, so let us first compare the inertia term with respect to the pressure gradient term. So inertia term by the pressure gradient term, if you just put the value of the inertia term delta u infinity square by L square, delta u infinity square by L square, and the pressure gradient term is u infinity square by delta, that is u infinity square by delta. U infinity square by delta. If you simplify, it will come delta u infinity square by L square into delta by u infinity square. If you simplify, it will be what? It is coming delta by L whole square. And delta by L whole square definitely is much less than 1. That means this inertia term can be neglected with respect to the pressure gradient term. Okay, so inertia term is neglected with respect to pressure gradient term. Next, let us compare. So pressure gradient term is more, inertia term is less. So let us compare the viscous term with pressure gradient term now. So viscous term and the pressure gradient term. So if you compare, what was the viscous term is nu u infinity by L delta. So nu u infinity by L delta, and the pressure gradient term was u infinity square by delta. If you simplify, it will be, if you simplify, it is coming, this delta will cancel, this delta will cancel, and it will be nu by L into u infinity, and which is nothing but 1 by Reynolds number considering the characteristic length L. Okay, because you know that Reynolds number is what? It is rho into velocity into some characteristic length, if we consider the whole length of the plate as a characteristic length, and mu. And that you can write as, if you just omit this quantity rho, and if you write this rho as mu by rho, this quantity is basically nu. So u infinity into L by nu is what is the Reynolds number, and this is just the reciprocal of that. And basically we are considering this quantity is much less than 1, because the boundary layer assumption is valid only when the Reynolds number is very high. So you can write for the time being that the Reynolds number is very large. This is one of the assumption, but actually it is not an independent assumptions. If the Reynolds number is very very high, then only this delta by L is much less than 1. So these are not two separate assumptions, that delta by L is much less than 1 and the Reynolds number is much greater than 1. These two are not actually separate assumptions. These two are basically dependent assumptions. Okay, so if Reynolds number is very large, definitely this fact will come. Okay, they are not actually independent assumptions. So anyway, this is the assumptions that we are considering. So what we are getting is finally that viscous term is also much insignificant with respect to the pressure gradient term. So what we have finally found is that in the y momentum equation, if you compare the inertia, pressure gradient and viscous, with respect to the pressure gradient term, both inertia term and viscous term are negligible. So definitely, so what remains is basically the pressure gradient term 1 by rho del p del y. This quantity then definitely is equal to 0 because all other terms are insignificant with that. Okay, so that definitely implies that this pressure is no longer a function of y. So pressure is not function of y. So pressure is only function of x, that we can conclude. Okay, so pressure is not function of y. So pressure is only a function of x. In general, pressure can be function of x and y, but we can see that if this is the situation, that means pressure is not changing with y. So pressure is only function of x. Now coming to the x momentum equation. For the x momentum equation under steady and no gravity situation, what will be the form? That will be u del x v del y is equal to minus 1 by rho, here it is u, into del p del x plus mu del 2 del x2 del 2 del y2. Okay, this is u. Now it is clear that sorry, mu by rho. Okay, so now it is clear that this part can be neglected with respect to this part, because delta square is much less than L square, and you need not to write this thing anymore, del p del x, because p is only function of x, that we have seen from the analysis of the y momentum equation. So if p is only function of x, then you can directly write this quantity as dp dx. So p is not varying. So if this is a flat plate, let us consider at any location x, see p is not changing along y. So every y direction, everywhere this p is same, and so that p value is same as the edge, and at the edge what is the value? That is p infinity, right? So you can also write this as dp infinity dx. Okay, so this quantity is dp infinity dx. Now finally, so it will take the x momentum equation of the form u del x plus v del u del y is equal to minus 1 by rho dp infinity dx plus mu by rho is nu into del 2u del y2, del 2u del y2. So this is what is the equation that we are getting. Further we can study this for a flat plate. For a flat plate, this u infinity is constant. That u infinity is not changing because there is no curvature in a flat plate. But if there is a curvature and some fluid is flowing, then definitely along the curvature the u infinity is going to change. Okay, u infinity is going to change, but in a flat plate this u infinity is not changing. U infinity is not function of x. Okay, so this p in the outside the boundary layer, definitely we can write outside the boundary layer, we can write p infinity plus half rho u infinity square, which is constant. Okay, this is the Bernoulli's equation. So if we write that, then if we can differentiate both sides, so that will give you dp infinity dx plus rho into u infinity into du infinity dx, and that is equal to 0 if you differentiate with respect to x both sides. And definitely for a flat plate this quantity is equal to 0 for a flat plate. Okay, so if this quantity is 0, which implies basically for a flat plate dp infinity dx is equal to 0. Okay, so if you further use this particular result for a flat plate analysis, then this part pressure gradient term will become 0 for a flat plate. So finally the boundary layer equations which is coming is what is u del u del x plus v del u del y is equal to nu del 2u del y2. Okay, so this is what is the boundary layer equation for a flat plate under the conditions that we have mentioned. Now definitely in this equation the order of magnitude of the inertia term, this is what is the inertia term, and order of magnitude of the viscous term, definitely they are same. Okay, if they are same, then you can definitely write the what is the order of magnitude of the inertia term. The order of magnitude of the inertia term is u infinity into u infinity divided by L, and definitely you can also see that the order of magnitude of this term also will be the same thing. So we are not writing separately and we are adding not required, one of the term is sufficient. So this is what is the order of magnitude of the inertia term. What is the order of magnitude of the viscous term? Nu to u infinity by delta square. Okay, this is order of magnitude of the viscous term. So they must have the similar order of magnitude, and this give you, if they having the similar order of magnitude, then delta square by L will have the order of magnitude of nu divided by u infinity. Okay, one in u infinity will cancel and this infinity will come here, or delta square by L square will have the order of magnitude nu by u infinity into L. Okay, so you can understand that delta by, instead of L, if we write x at any location x, that will have the order of magnitude nu by u infinity into x. Okay, and nu by u infinity into x is nothing but what? This quantity is nothing but 1 by Reynolds number x. So delta is of the order of magnitude of or delta by x is of the order of magnitude of 1 by, sorry, here you have to do the square root, right? Because this is delta square by L square, so delta by x will be square root of that, so this will be square root of that, so rex to the power half. Okay, or in other words, this delta is of the order of x by rex to the power half. So this is one of the very important result that we can see. If you actually compare with the actual result, you will find that the actual result is delta is equal to 5x by root over rex. This is what is the actual result. And now see, without actually solving anything, only by order of magnitude analysis, we can predict its functional form, that delta is equal to x by root over rex. Only that constant is can be found from the experiment. Okay, so you can understand that this is how important tool this order of magnitude analysis, or how important this is. Now let us see if we can find out what is delta order of magnitude, then we can also find out what is the order of magnitude of tau wall. So wall shear stress order of magnitude, if you want to find out, so that wall shear stress, as you know, is mu into del u del y at y is equal to 0. So the order of magnitude will be mu into u infinity divided by delta. Already we know the order of magnitude of delta, so you just put the value mu u infinity, and the order of magnitude of delta is what is x by root over rex, x by root over rex. That is what is the order of magnitude of delta. So order of magnitude of wall shear stress is mu u infinity into root over Rex divided by x. Now what is the order of magnitude of the local skin friction coefficient? Then local skin friction coefficient, that is CFX, that is tau wall by half rho u infinity square. Okay, so the order of magnitude of this quantity is basically tau wall by rho u infinity square. You need not to take this half, and order of magnitude of this quantity we already know, so that will be mu u infinity root over Rex divided by x, and rho u infinity square will come here. So if you simplify, it will produce a nu, because mu by rho is what is nu by u infinity into x into root over Rex. So that is equal to root over Rex divided by Rex, which is nothing but 1 by root over Rex. Okay, so that means finally what we are getting is that the order of magnitude of CFX is 1 by root over Rex. And if you see the actual result of CFX is equal to 0.664 by root over Rex. So that means if this constant is only not you are getting from the order of magnitude analysis, but all other functional form you are actually getting. Okay, so in this way, only by dimensional analysis or the order of magnitude analysis you can predict their functional form. Okay, thank you.